In our modern high-tech world, we take conveniences like paved highways, running water, and warm homes for granted. It's easy to assume such luxuries are entirely recent innovations. Yet over 2,000 years ago, the ancient Romans had already pioneered astonishing technologies that feel uncannily modern. How could a civilization of chariots and hand tools achieve feats that still amaze engineers today? Roman roads. The Roman Empire's road network was nothing short of an ancient superhighway system. The Romans built an estimated 50,000 miles of hard-surfaced roads across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, a feat of engineering unparalleled in the ancient world. These were not simple dirt paths, but carefully constructed roads layered with sand, gravel, stone, and tight-fitting paving blocks. Roman roads were famously straight, often cutting through hills or bridging valleys to forge the most direct route. They were also cambered, slightly arched, for drainage, which kept them usable in bad weather. For the first time in history, a traveler could journey on all-weather paved roads from one end of the known world to the other. Why was this so advanced for its time? Other civilizations had tracks and local roads, but only Rome created a continent-spanning network of durable highways. The roads allowed armies to march quickly from province to province and enabled trade caravans and messengers to move at unheard-of speeds. In an era when most travel was slow and perilous, Roman roads were a revelation. Safe, reliable, and astonishingly fast. They effectively shrank the world for those under Rome's rule. The impact was enormous. Commerce flourished, cultures mixed, and the empire stayed supplied and informed. The famous saying, "All roads lead to Rome," rang true, as virtually every major route eventually connected back to the capital. Many of these roads proved so well built that they remained in use for centuries. In fact, some modern highways still follow the exact routes laid down by Roman engineers, and occasionally even use their ancient foundations. The legacy of Rome's road system can be seen as the blueprint for today's infrastructure, a timeless testament to Roman ingenuity in transportation. Aqueducts. If roads were the arteries of the Roman Empire, aqueducts were its life-giving veins. The Romans engineered spectacular aqueduct systems to transport fresh water over long distances, supplying their cities with an abundance of clean water. Using gravity and a gentle, continuous slope, aqueducts carried water from springs or rivers in the hills through channels and pipes into urban centers. Some of these conduits ran underground, while others spanned valleys on top of towering arches of stone. One iconic example is the Pont du Gard in France, a massive bridge-like aqueduct that still stands as a marvel of engineering. Over the course of about 500 years, the city of Rome built 11 major aqueduct lines, the longest stretching over 50 miles. By the 1st century CE, these aqueducts combined could deliver an astonishing volume of water, by some estimates over 200 million gallons per day, into Rome's fountains, public baths, drinking reservoirs, and private households. This was a quantity of water supply unheard of in the ancient world, and not equaled again in many places until modern times. The aqueducts were advanced in both concept and execution. They relied purely on precise engineering. The channels maintained a very shallow gradient, dropping only a few feet per mile, to keep water flowing steadily without pumps. Roman surveyors and engineers used tools like the chorobates, a kind of level, to achieve this remarkable precision across varied terrain. When mountains stood in the way, they tunneled through them. When valleys opened up, they built multi-tiered arches or used inverted siphons, pressurized pipes, to carry water across. Upon reaching the city, the water was distributed through tanks and lead pipes, and excess was cleverly used to flush the sewer systems, keeping the city cleaner. The immediate impact of plentiful water was improved public health and comfort. Cities could sustain larger populations with baths, sanitation, and drinking water readily available. Urban life in Rome and other large cities like Carthage or Antioch became far more civilized and hygienic than in most other places on Earth. After the Roman Empire fell, much of this water infrastructure fell into ruin, and medieval Europeans struggled with polluted wells and rivers for centuries. Hippocaust system. Ancient central heating. The Roman quest for comfort didn't stop at clean water and paved roads. They also devised a way to keep their buildings cozy in winter, using an ingenious early form of central heating called the Hippocaust system. Long before radiators and thermostats, wealthy Romans, and anyone visiting their famous bathhouses, enjoyed heated floors and walls thanks to this advanced setup. Here's how a hippocaust worked. First, a building was constructed with a raised floor, held up on stacks of stone or clay pillars about 2 feet high. This created a hollow space under the entire floor. A furnace or firebox, called a praefurnium, was built at one end of the building, often just outside the room to be heated. When slaves stoked a wood fire in the furnace, the hot air and smoke rushed into the space beneath the floor. The heated air circulated under the floor and up through hollow bricks or flues built into the walls, effectively turning the floor and walls into large radiating heaters. Inside the room above, people would feel gentle warmth emanating from the very structure of the room, a uniform, soothing heat without the smoke of an open hearth. For its time, the hippocaust was a jaw-dropping innovation. In an era when most people elsewhere huddled around smoky fires, Romans in a well-designed bathhouse could stroll on warm floors in the dead of winter. The system was especially common in Roman baths, which often featured hot rooms, warm rooms, and cold plunge pools as part of the bathing ritual. Bathing in comfort became a hallmark of Roman urban life. Soon, rich citizens wanted the same luxury in their private villas. Remains of hippocaust-heated villas have been found in cooler provinces like Britain and Germany, proving that Roman comfort technology traveled far and wide. Of course, running a hippocaust was labor and fuel-intensive. It required constant tending of fires and vast amounts of wood. This meant only public institutions or the very wealthy could afford it. But those who experienced it surely counted it among Rome's most civilized offerings. In terms of advancement, the hippocaust is essentially the ancestor of modern central heating and indoor climate control. Its very existence in antiquity is impressive. No other civilization had anything comparable on a large scale until much later. Walking through ruins today, you can still see the little pillared subfloors and wall flues of ancient hippocausts, reminding us that the concept of a heated building was not born in the industrial age, but in the inventive mind of Rome. Roman concrete. How did the Romans manage to build so many grand structures, soaring arches, temples, domes, and sprawling bath complexes that have stood the test of time? A big part of the answer lies in a groundbreaking material they invented: Roman concrete. Known in Latin as opus caementitium, this concrete was a mix of slaked lime, a form of cement, water, sand, or volcanic ash, and chunks of aggregate like rocks or broken tiles. When packed into wooden molds or between layers of bricks, this mixture would harden into a solid mass as durable as natural stone. In fact, it often turned out to be more durable. Unlike modern concrete, which typically uses Portland cement, Roman concrete benefited from volcanic ash, pozzolana, in its mix. The pozzolana caused chemical reactions that made the concrete exceptionally strong and also allowed it to set underwater. That meant Romans could build structures like piers, bridges, and harbor facilities directly in the sea. The concrete would actually harden and get stronger in contact with seawater. This was an astonishing capability that gave Roman engineers enormous freedom. The introduction of concrete sparked what historians sometimes call the concrete revolution in Roman architecture. No longer limited to quarried stone blocks, architects could create vast new shapes: the towering vaults inside the baths of Caracalla, the curved amphitheater walls of the Colosseum, and most famously, the Pantheon's dome. The Pantheon in Rome, built in the 2nd century CE, has a concrete dome spanning 142 feet. To this day, the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome. It stands as proof of the material's strength and the Roman skill. The dome is over 1,800 years old and still perfectly intact, without steel reinforcing bars holding it together. Roman concrete was used in countless structures, large and small, binding together bricks and stones into a single monolithic whole. It was far quicker and more flexible than traditional stone masonry, allowing Romans to build on a scale and speed that astonished their contemporaries. What's truly remarkable is how well Roman concrete has endured. Many Roman bridges and aqueducts remain standing, and coastal concrete foundations from ancient ports have survived constant ocean waves that crumble modern concrete in a few decades. Only in recent years have scientists begun to unravel why. The mix of lime and volcanic material in Roman concrete seems to create a self-healing matrix, where cracks that form can recrystallize in the presence of water, effectively repairing the concrete over time. In other words, Roman concrete not only was advanced for its era, it in some ways outperforms what we use today. The knowledge of making such concrete was largely lost after the fall of Rome. The recipe had to be practically rediscovered in the 18th and 19th centuries when modern concrete technology re-emerged. The durability and ingenuity of Roman concrete remind us that sometimes the ancient world knew a few tricks that we are only just beginning to appreciate again. Roman medicine and surgery. Not all Roman innovations were made of brick and stone. Some were flesh and blood. In the realm of medicine and surgery, the Romans achieved practices shockingly sophisticated for their time, laying groundwork that would be built upon much later. Roman medicine was heavily influenced by earlier Greek knowledge, but the Romans took those ideas and applied their own practical organizational genius to them. Nowhere was this more evident than with the Roman army's medical corps. Every Roman legion traveled with trained medics and surgeons who carried portable tools to treat injuries on the battlefield. Archaeologists have discovered Roman surgical kits that include scalpels, scissors, bone saws, forceps, clamps, and even specula for examining body orifices, instruments that look remarkably like those in modern operating rooms. With these tools, Roman military doctors could remove arrows and spears, clean and stitch wounds, set broken bones, and perform amputations when necessary. They even had tools like the spoon of Diocles, designed to extract arrows or spear tips without causing further damage. Their skill meant that soldiers had a better chance of surviving terrible wounds. This was a major advantage for the Roman army and incredibly advanced compared to the rudimentary medicine of many contemporary societies. Roman surgeons in civilian life also performed a range of procedures that might surprise us. They conducted cataract surgeries on the eye, using a fine needle to push aside the cloudy lens, a technique known as couching, and they attempted delicate operations like removing bladder stones or repairing hernias. The Romans established valetudinaria, essentially the world's first hospitals, especially to care for wounded gladiators or soldiers, where patients could rest and recuperate under supervision. In these facilities, cleanliness was noted as important. Roman medical texts advised boiling surgical tools and washing wounds with vinegar or boiled water, an intuitive step toward preventing infection long before bacteria were understood. They also used pain-relieving and sleep-inducing concoctions. Opium from poppies and mandrake root, which contains compounds similar to sedatives, helped dull pain during procedures. Beyond surgery, Roman public health measures were notable. The city of Rome appointed officials to oversee street cleanliness and water quality, and facilities like public baths promoted hygiene on a scale not seen elsewhere. Prominent Roman physicians like Galen became authorities whose writings on anatomy and medicine guided doctors for over 1,000 years after. While not every Roman medical practice was effective, they still believed in balancing humors and sometimes used remedies like animal blood that did little. The practical advances in surgery and hospital care were truly ahead of their time. The fall of the Roman Empire saw much of this medical knowledge scattered or lost in the West, and only many centuries later did European medicine regain a similar level of surgical skill and sanitation. Conclusion. Looking back at these innovations, it's clear that the ancient Romans were not just conquering lands. They were conquering the frontiers of technology. Each advanced invention we've explored was a building block of civilization. Roads that knit the empire together, aqueducts and sewers that made city life cleaner and safer, heated baths and homes that offered comfort, concrete that enabled architectural wonders, and medical practices that saved lives. These breakthroughs weren't isolated marvels, but part of a culture that valued practical solutions and wasn't afraid to experiment on a grand scale. Their story endures in stone, water, and even in how we heal and live, proving that great ideas are timeless